Another of our design goals is to reduce the service that our machines requires to the absolute minimum. Where service is unavoidable, we like to make it as simple as possible so that users can perform the service themselves. There's very little to service on the resin trap, that's this part. If the catch pot inside gets full, then of course you will need to empty it and replace it, but that's easy. Just remove the trap lid, take out the old catch pot and put in a new one. The other thing you may need to do from time to time, particularly if you haven't been cutting the ends of the tube off nice and square, is that a little bit of resin may accumulate in the bottom of the tubing connections, and you may want to clean that out. That's most easily done. You just remove the gland nut, remove the O-ring. That's most easily done with the resin trap lid off, and you just get a twist bit, drill bit in your hand, and just rotate that up by hand through from the bottom of the connection. That will usually just flick out the resin that's in there. That process is simplified if from time to time you just put a bit of liquid mold release into the connection. That'll make it much easier to remove the resin. So that's all you need to do to the resin trap. Normally sitting down below the machine is the vacuum pump. Now this is the more service intensive part of the machine. For the vacuum levels required for resin infusion, we do need to use a pump that runs on oil, an oil sealed pump. And because there's oil in the pump and because there's contamination always coming into a vacuum pump, it's just the nature of the beast, that oil will get contaminated and it will have to be changed from time to time. It's just a moderate cost oil, a very small amount that's required, so it's not a costly process, it's just something that needs to be done. Typically that happens at about, or needs to be done at about 500 running hours, maybe sooner if there's a lot of contamination. The oil obviously gets discoloured in here. You may need to change it a little sooner. Oil changing simple. You just unscrew this cap here and drain the oil into a suitable container. When the oil's been drained, then put that cap back on, unscrew this one, and then you can just add the oil here. So that's oil changing. Another thing you will need to do from time to time, or ideally actually when you're changing the oil, or more frequently if it suits, is just to, while the pump is running, is just blow compressed air, particularly into the fan end in the machine, but otherwise over the fins of the pump and the motor. Get that out of the way. The need for that cleaning is vacuum pumps have to run reasonably warm to get rid of water vapor, which is always coming in from off the fabrics. That water vapor, if the pump ran too cold, it would accumulate in the oil and it would contaminate the oil quickly. Pumps deliberately run hot or reasonably warm to get rid of that water vapor, but if they get too hot because they just get so dirty, then eventually everything in the pump starts to suffer. The motor bearings overheat, and the oil deteriorates more quickly. So a periodic clean down is a very nice thing to do to the pump. The only other thing you want to do when you change the oil is just inspect the inlet filter, which resides in there. Just check that. If it's dirty, replace it. Oil, periodic clean down, inlet filter, that's your typical 500-hour service. At 2,000 hours roughly, you'll need to change this thing, which is a filter which sits in the pump about here. This is what we call an oil mist filter. Its purpose is to stop oil mist being discharged from the vacuum pump when the vacuum pump is running. It's an extremely fine filter. It tends to block over time with contaminants that are coming in. So periodically it just gets so full of contaminants, it just has to be replaced. That sits in there, very easily replaced. Just remove this cover here, unscrew the old filter, put the new one in, put the cap back on. So that's about the most complicated service there is. Between them, the 500-hour service may be 15 minutes, maybe another 15 minutes every 2,000 hours to change this, and that's about all that has to be done. It would be wonderful if vacuum pumps for infusion were oil-free. and didn't need any maintenance, but I'm afraid we just have to live with the reality. There is a little bit of maintenance required of the vacuum pump, but not too much.